Hello and welcome back to the fifth episode of the Rite of 433, The Sound of Silence, in which we will discuss the works of two quite different but very powerful compositional personalities with very distinctive styles of composition. John Cage, a pioneer of indeterminacy in music, electroacoustic music, and non standard use of musical instruments, was one of the leading figures of the post war avant garde. Critics have lauded him as one of the most influential composers of the 20th century. Cage is perhaps best known for his 1952 composition 433, which is performed in the absence of deliberate sound. Musicians who present the work do nothing aside from being present for the duration specified by the title. The content of the composition is not 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, as it is often assumed, but rather the sounds of the environment heard by the audience during performances. The work's challenge to assume definitions about musicianship and musical experience made it a very popular and controversial topic both in musicology and the broader aesthetics of art and performance. The 433 in the title represents the total of 273 seconds, symbolizing the temperature of the absolute zero. It's very much a musical composition, since it explores the most fundamental characteristic of music, its relationship with time. And it is very much a performance piece, since it really does not record well. In fact, the studio recording takes away much of the original ideas, as well as the philosophy behind the piece. It is supposed to make us think about the nature of sound and whether any sound can be put in a musical context. For example, is this podcast also a musical work in its own respect, and whether the sounds, which can be heard since I'm not recording in a studio setting, is also a part of the composition, since it is also capturing our attention. One of the great Cage's innovations was also the principle of indeterminacy, which can be found in our first musical example. The music of changes initially comes from the ancient Confucian I Ching, the Book of Changes, and its primary principle of change as the only true constant in the world. The main compositional elements, tempo, dynamic, rhythm, are basically determined by the flip of the coin, so with pure chance or luck, which will also be one of the themes in the following episode. The listener is quite literally put in uncharted territory. He's encouraged not to shy away from the unknown and to accept time as an inevitable part of his life, to really embrace the truth of the moment. So here is an excerpt from Book 1 of The Music of Changes by John Cage. Cage was also a pioneer in developing several extended performance techniques, most notably the prepared piano. Sonatas and interludes for prepared piano is a cycle which consists of 16 sonatas, 13 of which are cast in binary form, the remaining 3 in ternary form, and 4 more freely structured interludes. The aim of the pieces is to express the 8 permanent emotions of the Rasa Indian tradition. In sonatas and interludes, Cage elevated his technique of rhythmic proportions to a new level of complexity. In each sonata, a short sequence of natural numbers and fractions defines the structure of the work, and that of its parts in forming structures as localized as individual melodic lines. It takes quite some time in order to properly prepare the piano for the performance, perhaps not well received by piano technicians who put a lot of time and effort into precisely tuning the piano for, let's say, a standard performance. But this type of sound exploration was quite important in the middle of the 20th century. It's a concept that is best heard than explained, so please enjoy the first interlude and Sonata number 5 from Sonatas and Interludes for Prepared Piano, composed in 1948 by John Cage. A person who perhaps shares a somewhat similar artistic sensitivity and philosophical approach to music, but with a very distinct personal style, is the great Russian composer Galina Ustvolskaya. Born in Petrograd, Ustvolskaya studied from 1937 to 39 at the college attached to the Leningrad Conservatory. From 1947 until 1977, she taught composition at this college. In 1939, she entered Dmitri Shostakovich's composition class at the conservatory as the only female student in his class. Her composition teacher said of her, "I'm convinced that her music will achieve world fame and be valued by all who hold truth to be the essential element of music." He was, of course, very much right. Shostakovich sent some of his own as yet unfinished works to Ustvolskaya, attaching great value to her comments. Some of these pieces even contain quotations from his pupil's compositions. For example, he employed the second theme of the finale of her clarinet trio throughout the fifth string quartet and in the Michelangelo Suite No. 9. The intimate spiritual and artistic relationship between these two composers can be also compared to that of Schoenberg and Webern. Perhaps similar to Webern, Ustvolskaya had an extremely ascetic and disciplined approach to composing. Sometimes affectionately referred to as the lady with the hammer, she was truly unflinching in her relentless pursuit for the truth. This can be best heard in her final composition, Symphony No. 5, which she completed between 1989 and 1990. The symphony is scored very sparsely for oboe, trumpet, tuba, wooden cube, violin, and reciter. The wooden cube is a percussion instrument designed by Ustvolskaya. It consists of an enclosed cube, which is then struck with wooden hammers and/or mallets. The text may be spoken in Russian, English, or German. Despite some assertions, the text of the symphony is not a free interpretation of the Lord's Prayer, but it is the Lord's Prayer. The composer stressed that the reciter should pronounce it as if directly praying to God. Like her fourth symphony, this symphony consists of blocks of musical material, in this case four, which unfold one after the other without variation. The four blocks are unified by having their tonal focus on D flat. It is a remarkable example of compositional discipline, masterful building of the dramatic atmosphere, and what it really means to create a musical piece of tremendous spiritual power. It simply has to be heard in its entirety. So, as our final musical example, we have the Symphony No. 5, Amen, by Galina Ustvolskaya. In the following episode, we will discuss popular culture, both from the perspective of the audience as mass consumers, as well as the people as a source of artistic inspiration. Thank you once again for listening, and see you in the next episode.
Отче наш, сущий на небесах, да светится Да придет царствие Твое. Да будет воля Твоя и на земле, как и на небе. Отче наш, Отче, Отче, Отче наш. Хлеб наш насущный дай нам на сей день. Прости нам долги наши, прости нам долги наши, прости нам долги наши, как и мы прощаем должникам нашим. Отче наш, Отче, Отче, Отче наш. Не введи нас в искушение, но избави нас от лукавого. Отче, Отче, Отче наш. Твое есть царство и сила и слава вовеки. Аминь.